Welcome back to another episode of With a Grain of Salt. I am your host, Isaiah Salter, and I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in for yet another week, another episode. This week is titled Getting Back to the Basics. Getting back to the basics. Past couple of weeks, I had been feeling a bit confused, just kind of lacking clarity on like the next steps and how I kind of want to go about content. I've mentioned this in the past couple of episodes. And through that journey, right, I was kind of getting in my head a little bit, and I was searching for this very complex, big shift to kind of bring me that clarity, right? And, that all led me to a few nights ago having a really deep journaling session with some tea before bed. And it brought me to this idea of getting back to the basics, getting back to the fundamentals. And that really struck a chord with me because I took that initiative and I really started to sit with that. And, the next day I really prioritized the basic fundamentals that have helped keep me grounded, right? My grains, as we call them, right? The things that keep you grounded, aligned, and in tune. And I really prioritized those. I really prioritized, waking up when I needed to wake up, doing my morning routine, going to the gym, meditating, journaling, being intentional with how I'm showing up, being intentional with what's going in my body. And after that day of doing that and just focusing on the basics, on the small things that, we can often overlook, I felt so clear. And it dawned on me how important the basics are. And as you grow, as you evolve, it's very easy for your mind, like I said earlier, to create these complex narratives of what the next step needs to be and how you have to make these big jumps. And, when you're a bit confused, that this clarity is going to come in a very overwhelming type of way, right? And so we're searching for that. And sometimes when we're searching for that clarity in those big things, we can often overlook the basics, right? The basic things, the simple things that really help us to stay grounded. And it's actually when you prioritize those things that clarity can be birthed. And so we're going to talk about getting back to the basics and really simplifying our life, right? We don't need to overcomplicate things because this life is not meant to be complicated. It's meant to be simple. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Yes, we're going to go through all different types of seasons and situations. We're going to experience so many different things, but it is simple, right? It is simple, and we can simplify our life to help us with clarity, right? Clarity does not come from complexity. It comes from simplicity. And it's the discipline. It's about having discipline with the basics that help us to continue to evolve and grow and have that clarity that we're searching for in every season that we move into, right? So we're going to talk about that today, getting back to the basics. Point number 1, return to the fundamentals. Return to the fundamentals. When life feels heavy, scattered, or confusing, the solution is rarely to add more complexity. It's almost always to strip things down and return to the basics. Sleep, nutrition, movement, stillness, journaling, spiritual grounding. These are not optional. They are the foundation that supports everything else. Without them, no strategy or technique can hold up. When you realign with the fundamentals, clarity and strength return, and you realize the basics were never really basic. They were essential. The basics were never really just basics. They're essentials. They're the things that help us stay grounded, aligned, and in tune. Our grains, right? We all need those grains that can help us to stay grounded through the storm, through the seasons, through different experiences. And, when life feels heavy, it feels scattered, you're a bit confused, our mind will jump to thinking that we need to add more, right? Like I said, complexity. We think we need to do more, we need to add more. Right? It's going to come in a big way. But it's rarely ever that. It's actually about stripping down your life and getting back to the basics that can help with that clarity. And even just doing that brings so much peace because, rather than trying to figure everything out right now, let me just focus my energy on these little simple things and just allow that to be my main goal right now. I'm not going to try to force clarity. I'm not going to try to figure everything out. I'm just going to get back to the basics and simplify the process. And just in doing that, peace arises, right? You feel more grounded. You feel more aligned. You feel more in tune. And that's the environment internally that's needed for clarity to arise. A lot of time, clarity doesn't arise because internally we're scattered. And if we don't learn how to cultivate stillness and practices that can help us to come back to center, it's going to be very hard for clarity to arise, because clarity arises when there's clarity within. And by clarity within, I mean things are compartmentalized, right? Things are where they're meant to be, right? Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And that comes from those small fundamental things that help us to stay grounded and compartmentalize the things that we need to. I know that's a tongue twister. I haven't used that word a lot. Compartmentalize. I like that. I'm going to use that more. But yeah, so realigning with the fundamentals, right? Understanding that is what breeds clarity, is the simplicity of the process, not the complexity, right? The simplicity of the process, right? And use feeling scattered, use feeling confused, use feeling a little bit, lost as an opportunity to get back to the fundamentals, as an opportunity to realign with the basics, right? Because the beauty in this, right, is sometimes you need to fall off the path in order to get back on it with a clearer, vision, with a clearer perspective. And sometimes when you have kind of swayed away from things that have helped keep you grounded for a while, and you go back and you're really intentional with, prioritizing those things, you come back to them in a way where they just hit different, right? Like that journal session I had the other night, it just hit different. It hit different because I came back to it with presence. I came back to it with intention, right? I came back to it after being very confused and just kind of all over the place mentally. And I was able to come back, and it was in that journal session that I had so much clarity come out. And my perspective on journaling shifted a little bit in that moment, right? Just to, I really need to prioritize this a little bit more. And now how I show up in those moments is going to be a little different, just because, I've changed and I've grown. But we're still getting back to the basics, right? Journaling has always been a fundamental, especially when I started my journey of wanting to be the best version of myself, of wanting to live an authentic and aligned life, of wanting to live in the highest expression possible, of wanting to be used as a vessel for service and love. And I knew journaling was always a very vital thing in that journey. And so getting back to it is essential. And getting back to it right now for me is so beautiful because, like I said, I'm coming back with just newer perspectives, newer energy, and just in a different way, right? In a different way. Same thing, different expression, right? Same thing, different expression. It's not about adding more. It's just about evolving, right? We don't need to add more things and try to figure everything out and jump mountains in a day. No, sometimes we need to keep the main thing, keep the basics, but how we show up with those fundamentals, with those basic things will evolve over time, right? But let's make sure that we're keeping them central in our life because they keep us grounded, right? They're the foundation of our rock-solid house, our rock-solid house. It says mastery is built on fundamentals. Even world-class athletes still practice the fundamentals. No matter how advanced you think you are, ignoring the basics weakens everything else. So true. Even the best athletes in the world, right? If you really study the best athletes in the world, they just do the simple things at a very, very high level, right? I think the best players, the best athletes, whatever sport it is, they do the simple things at a very, very high level, right? But a lot of times, right, especially being a former athlete, I know what it's like to think you need to do more and add more to your game and do all of these things in order to perform at the level you want to perform. When in actuality, it's actually about simplifying the process, right? Simplicity breeds performance, right? But we think complexity does. We think doing more is going to make us, be more. But that's just not the case. If anything, doing more creates more stress and friction and actually, breeds confusion and complexity and overthinking on all the things that take us away from performing at the level we want to perform. But if you really study the best athletes, they just do the simple things very, very well. And yes, and this is the beauty of the journey. When you have a strong foundation and you're doing the simple things at a very high level, that's what allows for the openness to try new things and try a new move, whatever it may be, because you have the foundation of the simple things, right? But a lot of people, they try to jump to the really fancy move, to the complex, plan, all of those things, and they skip over the fundamentals. And now when life gets tough or you go through a really tough situation, you don't have a strong foundation built, right? And that's the importance of the basics. That's the importance of these fundamentals, right? And so let's make sure we're getting back to them. And when life, kind of gets a little heavy, maybe mentally and emotionally you become a bit scattered and maybe you get away from these things. Let's use that as an opportunity to reconnect, realign, right? We're not going to beat ourselves down. We're not going to, act like our world is falling apart just because we haven't been prioritizing journaling. We haven't been prioritizing meditation. We haven't been prioritizing our diet. We haven't been prioritizing prayer. We haven't been prioritizing stillness, right? We're not going to beat ourselves down and allow guilt and shame to erode our internal system. We're not going to do that. We are going to reflect with awareness, and then with intention, we are going to get back to these fundamentals in a way that's aligned. And that's a beautiful thing, right? Everything is an opportunity. Everything is a lesson, right? If viewed with the right perspective. And that's why there's this space, right? This With a Grain of Salt community, because we are all here shifting our perspective on life so that we can navigate the things that we go through in a healthier way. Shifting your perspective isn't about immunity from difficulty. It's about peace through difficulty. It's about navigating different situations in a healthier and aligned way, like we talk about. It's the beauty of perspective, right? It says going back to the basics is not regression, it's refinement. Every new season of life demands a stronger foundation. What sustained you before needs to be sharpened and reinforced for where you're going now. So true. This is really good. Going back to the basics is not regression, it's refinement. A lot of times we think simplifying our life is regression, right? Going back to things that have helped us to stay grounded and aligned is regression. But a lot of times it's really refinement. A lot of times God will pull you back to the very basic fundamentals that have helped cultivate you into the person you are today, not as a form of regression, but as a form of refinement. Sometimes we have to get back to those basics and do some refinement because we're in a new season. We're in a new energy. We're in a new mindset, right? So the fundamentals need to be refined, right? We don't need to add more. We don't need to try to, make the journey more complex than it needs to be. No, we just need to get back to the basics. But when we get back to the basics, we need to work on refinement, right? That may mean showing up in meditation or journaling in a different way. That may mean shifting, how your prayer sessions is. That may mean shifting how, you view and show up for devotion. Whatever that looks like for you, right? In your spiritual tradition, your spiritual faith, right? Your background, right? So it's about refinement. It's not regression. Sometimes you need to take steps back sometimes in the journey. Growth sometimes is going to require you to take steps back. But understand, taking steps back isn't regression. It's refinement. A lot of times we need to take a step back to refine the things we need to refine so that we can move forward in an aligned way, right? But a lot of times we're so trying to get to the next thing and move at 1,000,000 miles per hour and try to, figure out all of these complex narratives in our head that we don't even allow for the process of stepping back and just, doing some refinement. Nah. But remember, every new season of life demands a stronger foundation, right? As you evolve and grow, your foundation is going to require you to strengthen, right? The season is going to require you to strengthen your foundation, right? And your foundation is built on the fundamentals. So we need to make sure that we're refining those fundamental things that help us to stay grounded and to keep that strong foundation. And everybody's fundamentals are different. Everybody's grains are different. I should have titled this episode "Getting Back to the Grains," but I'm not going to do that. Because everybody, if you really tapped in, you know what the Grains lifestyle is about. It's an extension of what we do here on the podcast. So, but yes, every new season of life demands a stronger foundation. So remember, what sustained you before needs to be sharpened and reinforced for where you're going, right? James Clear, if you've never read Atomic Habits, you definitely should. It's a great book. But he has a really famous quote that, or a famous saying that a lot of people quote, which is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, right? Your systems are the things in place that help you to operate in a very aligned way, right? The small fundamentals that keep you moving in the right direction. A lot of times people make the mistake of setting all of these, high goals and these complex things like we talked about, but they don't look at their foundation. They don't look at the fundamentals that they have in place. And that's where the disconnect happens, right? You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. You fall to your foundation, right? If you have a weak foundation with the basic things, with the fundamentals, it's going to be very, very hard for you to rise to the level of the goals that you are setting because you have a weak foundation, right? You have to really be honest. Let me look at the goals that I'm setting, and then let me look at the foundation that I am built on, right? And a lot of times it's not about focusing on the goal. It's about focusing on the foundation. Let me focus on the foundation and strengthening that. And through that process, I'm going to be able to evolve to those goals because I have the foundation that's aligned with it. I have the foundation that's in congruence with those goals and those visions and those plans, right? A practice that you could take for point number 1 is choose 3 basics that you've let slip. Write them where you'll see them every day on your mirror, phone, notebook, journal, whatever it is, and commit to locking in on those 3 for the next 30 days and let them anchor your growth. And that's honestly what I'm in the process of doing right now. Like from that, journal session and just sitting with myself and coming back to that understanding that I just need to get back to the basics. That's what I said I'm going to prioritize this next month. Like I'm not going to focus on anything other than just getting back to the basics, making sure I'm prioritizing my sleep, making sure I'm prioritizing the gym, making sure I'm prioritizing my diet, making sure I'm prioritizing my sleep, making sure I'm prioritizing being intentional with how I'm showing up, right? Being intentional with the conversations that I'm having and the things that I'm watching, right? The basic things. I'm getting back to the basics because for me, those are the things that really help me stay grounded. Those are the things that help me continue to evolve into the best version of myself. And so I felt like I got away from that a little bit. I felt like I allowed, my mind to take me, in a direction to where I was overlooking those things that are so vital to my journey, right? And so let's use this as an opportunity to, take these next few weeks, right? It doesn't have to be a month, right? Maybe it's a week, maybe it's just a day, right? That's another thing. I was thinking to myself, don't overlook the power of a good day. Do not overlook the power of a good day. Do you know how powerful it is when you just wake up, right? Or really it starts the night before, but you prioritize having a really, really good day. Sometimes that's all you need to get right back on track. I am going to prioritize a really, really good day. And that's really what I did. I was like, I'm going to prioritize having a really good day, but with the fundamentals, with the basics. And by doing that, I just felt so much more aligned. I felt so much more clear. I just felt so much more at peace. And that's all I needed to be like, yeah, I'm gonna lock in on this for the next month. So sometimes all you need is just to prioritize a really, really good day. Make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're showing up in the way you're supposed to show up. You're getting all your tasks done. You're prioritizing your morning and night routines. You're prioritizing what you're putting in your body, making sure you're hydrating, making sure you're focusing on being present, making sure you're being aware of the different interactions and conversations you're having. Like sometimes that is all you need to get right back on track. So prioritize that. And if you want to take that practice, be my guest, my brothers and sisters. Point number 2, why the basics always work. Why the basics always work. No matter how far you go in life, whether it's business, fitness, relationships, or personal growth, you'll always find yourself circling back to the basics. They're timeless because they never stop working. We tend to complicate things, searching for hacks, shortcuts, or advanced methods. But the truth is, the fundamentals are what actually move the needle. When you master the basics, you create a strong foundation that supports everything else. Shout out to Bruce Lee. He said, I believe it was Bruce Lee. He said, I don't fear the man who has practiced 10,000 different kicks. I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times, right? Simplicity. The fundamentals are what actually move the needle and actually help us to evolve into the best version of ourselves, right? But we tend to complicate things, searching for the hack, the shortcuts, or these advanced methods that we think are needed to step into that new season. But in actuality, it's really about simplifying the process. Simplicity breeds clarity, right? Keep that as a mantra in your life. Simplicity breeds clarity. Simplicity breeds clarity. Complexity is seductive, but fragile. Complexity is seductive, but fragile. The more complicated your system, the easier it is to break down. The basics are simple, reliable, and sustainable, and they'll hold you up no matter the season, right? Complexity is seductive, but fragile. It's very easy to allow your mind to make you think that complexity is the way to go. That complexity means, oh, I'm moving in the right direction because I'm doing more, I'm thinking more, right? There's more on my plate, and that's what's supposed to happen. But in actuality, it's very fragile, right? When you live your life based off of complexity, it's very fragile, very, very fragile. The more complicated your system, the easier it is to break down, right? So the more complicated your process, the easier it is for you to break down, for you to burn out. The basics are simple and they're reliable, they're sustainable, and they'll hold you up no matter the season, right? Let's get back to the basics. And we mentioned this in the previous point. The greats never stop practicing the fundamentals, right? When you think about LeBron and Kobe, right? They still practice footwork. They still practice free throws. The simple act of a free throw, right? They're practicing that every day after practice, right? Because mastery doesn't mean outgrowing the basics. It means recommitting to them at higher levels. This is huge. Mastery is not about getting to a point to where you can outgrow the basics. It's about continuing to recommit to them at higher levels. Refinement. Like we said, we're not getting rid of these things. We're refining these things, right? We are refining these things. So mastering the basics is not about outgrowing them. It's about refining them. It's about recommitting to them at higher levels. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm recommitting to the meditation and the journaling, right? And the stillness and the diet at a higher level. So it's going to look different. How I show up in those things is going to look different, but I'm recommitting to them because I know that it's those basic fundamentals that help keep me grounded, aligned, and in tune. And if we're not intentional with those things, then like I said, we will allow the society, we will allow our mind to create these very complex narratives that take us completely away from the basics and the simplicity of life. Because when you're complicated, when your mind is complicated, right, and when you're complicated internally, like thoughtfully and emotionally, when you're complicated, life is going to be complicated, right? It's very, very hard to live peacefully externally when internally you're not at peace, right? And peace comes from simplicity, right? Simplicity. So it's about having that understanding and then being aware, right? Because our mind is wired to do that. Our mind is wired to that. What I've found is my mind is wired to, especially growing up in this society, it's wired to create these complex narratives that rarely are ever the truth and just cause more stress and overthinking. And I think it's in those moments that we need to learn how to have a real conversation with ourselves, right? This is the importance of inner dialogue, learning how to speak to yourself from the stance of a friend, right? And not an enemy, right? A lot of times our inner dialogue is so negative. It's just it's just a constant battle of fighting ourselves every single day, right? Of course, we're going to feel drained. Of course, we're going to, not be able to have inner peace, or because we're constantly fighting internally. And so it's really about learning how to have a conversation with yourself in a healthy way. When these things arise, overthinking, complexity and stress and anxiety and life getting tough and you having to deal with a really uncomfortable situation and fear and uncomfortable conversations, all of these things, when these arise and we're feeling these things and we're navigating these things, it's about learning how to converse with ourselves, in those moments, right? Share that inner dialogue. Sit with the discomfort. Sit with the complexity. I had to sit with myself and be like, hold on. We don't need to overcomplicate the process, right? And when your mind says, yes, we do, hey, it's all right. I get where you're coming from, and I see why you're trying to overcomplicate things, but I need you to trust me, and it's going to be all right. I got you, right? And then you go to your practices, right? And you ground yourself in those moments. And my mind is going here, so I want to talk on it so that I don't forget. It may or may not correlate with this. We'll see how it comes out. But I was thinking about this a lot the other day because I'm talking about inner dialogue. And I think one of the biggest things that we really need to learn how to do is prep ourselves for life with that inner dialogue. What I mean by that is, let's say I am wanting to make a change in my life, right? I want to shift my perspective. I want to shift, a certain habit. I want to change a certain area in my life. I need to be able to have a conversation with myself. I need to be able to have a conversation with myself and prep myself for the things that I may experience in that process so that when those things come up, it's not a surprise. I don't start tweaking out. I don't start, oh my gosh, panicking. Learn how to have a conversation with yourself and prep yourself for what life is going to bring. With change, what do we understand with change? Change is going to bring discomfort, right? Change is going to bring difficulty. change is going to require us to step out of the known into the unknown. Change sometimes is going to cause our minds to start overthinking and, creating doubt and creating all of these, deceptive narratives in our mind, right? So we need to be able to have a conversation with ourselves, let ourselves know that, hey, we're going to change, but we need to mentally prep for these things that may come up on this journey. So that when they do come up, we've already had this conversation, and now we can bring that conversation into this moment with awareness and intention and move through it with a better understanding that this isn't happening because I'm moving in the wrong direction. This isn't happening because I'm doing something wrong. No, this is just a part of the process. And I've mentally prepared for this through that inner dialogue that I've had with myself, right? And I just wanted to say that because that was something that really was on my mind heavy as I was thinking of like shifting my routine and shifting out of old ways and, just getting back to the basics and understanding like what that process can bring and just having that conversation with myself. And it helps tremendously because now it's like, okay, I know, let's say you want to start going to the gym. You haven't been going to the gym for a long time and you've been in this very redundant routine of just, kind of pushing the gym to the side, playing video games or just doom scrolling, whatever it is, right? When you just decide, okay, I really want to start prioritizing going to the gym, you need to mentally have a conversation with yourself and understand, okay, tomorrow there's going to be a point throughout my day where I feel the urge to just play the video game. I feel the urge to just doom scroll. I feel the urge to just go back to that habit that I'm trying to break free from, and I won't want to go to the gym. So I need to have a conversation with myself explaining, hey, this is going to come up. In that moment, we need to reflect on this conversation so that we can make an aligned decision and not allow that moment to sway us back into things that we're not trying to do, right? That's what I mean about having that inner dialogue to prep us for different things that we're going to experience. And with this podcast, what I try to do is give some perspective on different things that you will face so that you can have that inner dialogue with yourself about these things, right? I try to, surface or shed some light on different things that we're going to face on the journey of growth, of evolving, of becoming the best version of ourselves, of relationships, of spirituality, of, just cultivating your own unique path. There's so many things that come up, right? Mentally, emotionally, physically, that I try to shed light on. And with that new awareness that we all are cultivating, we can have that inner dialogue of, hey, okay, when the fear comes up, hey, when the anxiety comes up, hey, when the doubt comes up, hey, when the discomfort comes up, this is how we're going to react. And this is how we're going to respond, and we're not going to jump off the ship and think that this is the worst thing ever and think that, this isn't a part of the process. No, because we've mentally prepped ourselves with this new perspective. So now we can face these things in an aligned way, and we're not going to react in a way that's, we're going to respond in an aligned way. And Jim Rohn says, success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying the basic fundamentals. There was a saying by, he was an MBA analyst. I forgot his name. Kenny Smith. He said, extraordinary people, the thing that makes you extraordinary is doing the ordinary extra, right? The thing that's really going to help you be the best version of yourself is being incredibly disciplined with the basics, disciplined with the fundamentals, disciplined with your grains, right? You don't need to, when you think of discipline, you don't need to be disciplined with all of these things. Be disciplined with the simple things that help you stay grounded, the fundamentals, right? And as you do that, that's going to help you to evolve into the best version of yourself. Point number 3, clarity is born from discipline. Like we just said, clarity is born from discipline. Clarity isn't just about inspiration or having the right vision. It's the natural byproduct of consistent discipline. When you live with scattered habits, your mind will feel scattered too. But when you discipline yourself to lock in on the small, repeatable actions, sleeping on time, journaling daily, eating clean, you begin to notice the noise fading. Discipline creates structure, and within structure, clarity has room to breathe. Discipline doesn't trap you. It frees you from confusion, hesitation, and wasted energy. We just spoke on this, but come on. That's exactly it. Discipline creates structure, and within structure, clarity has room to breathe. A lot of people lack clarity because they lack discipline. And it's not discipline with all of these grand things. It's just discipline with the small things, right? Eating healthy, sleep, journaling, hydrating, exercising, right? Meditating, praying, whatever it is. These small little things that help you stay grounded. When we're disciplined with those, that is what allows for clarity to arise, like we said earlier. Because clarity has room to breathe, because discipline creates structure, and within that structure, clarity can come in, right? But if we don't cultivate that discipline with the small things, it's going to be very hard for us to live a life with clarity and peace. And I think that's another thing too. So many people fixate on clarity, but clarity is the byproduct, right? Don't focus on the byproduct. Focus on the thing that causes the byproduct. So focus on the discipline with the small things. And as you do that, as you start to create discipline in your life, a structure in your life, within that structure, clarity has space to arise, to surface, to breathe. A lot of people, there's no space in their life for clarity because there's no discipline and everything's scattered, right? And when your life's scattered, your mind's scattered, your emotions are scattered, everything is scattered. Where is there space for clarity to come up? There's nowhere. And then what do we get into? We get into this fight with life, trying to force clarity, trying to force outcomes, trying to force life to fit into this mold. And it's just a very, very draining way to live life, right? It's a very, very draining way to live life. But understand that clarity is the natural byproduct of consistent discipline. When you are disciplined with the little things, I promise you, clarity will come up. Clarity on the next move, clarity on, what that big move looks like, that big shift looks like, right? It comes from the discipline and the structure every day, right? The art of the everyday. That's the saying for Grains. You see how Grains was birthed out of this podcast. That's why I love y'all so much in this community so much, because it birthed Grains, the Grains lifestyle. I was, thinking about, at the time, I'm just thinking about my lifestyle and how I go about my life, and just the small intentional things that really help me to stay grounded. And I remember talking to my boy Adrian, and we just mentioned it one day, it's your Grains. And it was a wrap from there. It was a wrap from there. But Adrian came up with the saying, or the motto, the art of the everyday, because that's really what it's about. It's the art of the everyday, because life is lived moment to moment. Life is lived moment to moment, right? Every single day. And it's about being the best you can in that day, right? Every day is going to be different, and that's the art of the everyday. But when you really focus on just putting one foot in front of the other, focusing on the small fundamentals, being disciplined with those things every day, you're good. I promise you're good. No, you're not always going to have the answers. No, you're not always going to know what the next step looks like. And yeah, you're still going to have to navigate some confusion and all of these things. But like we said, the fundamentals help us to stay grounded. They're a very strong foundation that we build our life on, right? So don't overlook them, right? And be really disciplined with those. Because if you can't be disciplined with the small things, there's no way you're going to be able to handle the big things that come into your life, right? I like to view everything that I go through as preparation for the next step. And if I don't learn how to handle where I'm at, be where my feet are, and prioritize the small things where I'm at currently, it's going to be hard for me to really prioritize the things that I step into, right? So use everywhere that you're at, every season that you're cultivating, every season that you're navigating as preparation, right? How can I make the most out of where I'm at? And that doesn't come from doing more or trying to add more to your plate. It comes from getting back to the basics and being disciplined with those things, being disciplined with the small things, right? But they're not even small, right? We say small, yeah, because they're just like the everyday things that we just do, right? But they're really the things that lead us to the greatest change. They really are. Like, I wouldn't be here if I didn't really prioritize the journaling, the meditation, the stillness, right? The sitting with myself, the exercising, the eating healthy, all of that. I would not be here without those small daily habits that have helped me stay grounded, aligned, and in tune. I wouldn't. And I'll even go a step further to say like those things are dang near the most important things on my journey that have helped me get here, right? Like we look at, the big change and, that amazing accolade or that amazing achievement or that amazing leap. And we think those are the things that lead to, the big shifts and stuff. But it's really the small daily habits, the small daily grains that help you stay grounded, that you really lock in on, that you really prioritize, that really lead you to evolving and growing into the best version of yourself. Confusion often comes from inconsistency. Many people think they lack clarity, but what they lack is rhythm. Once you get consistent in the basics, your vision sharpens naturally. So true. A lot of people think they lack clarity, but they really just lack rhythm. They really lack rhythm. And rhythm comes from the discipline of the little things, right? The discipline of the fundamentals, right? The discipline of your grains that help you stay grounded. And when you are, you create a rhythm with those things, clarity is going to come as a byproduct. I promise you it will, right? I promise you it will. Because it goes to the saying that when you stop looking, it'll find you, right? It's the same with clarity. When you're constantly looking for clarity, it's almost as if you create more confusion, right? But when you stop focusing on clarity and all those things and you just focus on the fundamentals, on the basic, simple things, clarity finds you because you've created a rhythm that clarity can operate in, right? That clarity can operate in. And this is why you need to take everything I say with a grain of salt. Whatever the basics and fundamentals look like for you, that could be anything, a walk, it could be art, it could be poetry, it could be music, anything. Whatever that looks like for you, you take and you apply these themes and topics and insights to your life, right? To your life, right? Yes, we can take from each other, right? There's people that I look up to that I have taken things that they have said that they've done and I've seen how they work for me. Sometimes it does. Sometimes I'm like, nah, that's not me. Like, I'm going to find something else that really works. And that's really what I want you to prioritize with this space, with these conversations, with these, dialogues. Because when I think in our society too, like we live in a very right or wrong society, this or that society, when we are all unique individuals. We are all unique individuals with unique paths, and it's important that we cultivate our uniqueness in our life. And how you do that is by figuring out what resonates and what works for you and leaving what doesn't, without worrying about what other people think, without thinking that, because they're not doing this, it's wrong, or because they said that if I don't do this, no, we're not doing that. Figure out what works for you and allow that rhythm to take you where you're meant to go. God granted us uniqueness for a reason. We need to express it. And how do we express it? By doing what resonates with us, truly. I can sit here and say, yeah, I think everybody should journal and all of this stuff, and I think it's a great practice, but maybe it's not for you right now, and that is okay. Like, it's okay. Like, there's been seasons in my life where I'm like, I don't even want to journal. It's just not it right now, right? It's just not it, and that's okay, right? It's okay. It doesn't mean I'm, right or wrong because I'm journaling or not journaling. No, it's just finding things that help you stay grounded, aligned, and in tune. And that can look different depending on who you are, where you come from, your background, your perspective, your mindset, your uniqueness, So I just wanted to put that in there, but I digress. That's another word too. That's another saying, I digress, that I've never really used a lot, but I've started to hear it more in podcasts and stuff, so I want to start putting it into my vocabulary. I digress, right? I think it's like after you say, I should just look it up, but I think it's after you say something like, after you say a lot of something, then you'd be like, all right, well, I digress. Like, I'm going to take a step back. Now we're going to look it up. We're going to look it up because I got to know. What does I digress mean? Oh, yes. Okay. I digress is something people say when they realize they've gone off topic or taken the conversation in a side direction, and now they're pulling themselves back to the main point. Okay, that's great. I digress. Okay, all right, yeah, that's cool. So it's not necessarily you're saying a lot. It's more you're getting off topic. So I don't think I was off topic, but if I was, I digress. So yeah. Many people think they lack clarity, but what they lack is rhythm, right? Once you get back to the basics, your vision sharpens naturally. Discipline gives you energy rather than drains it. This is very true. Discipline gives you energy rather than drains it. It feels restrictive at first, but in reality, it removes the mental clutter of indecision and makes you feel lighter. So true. It makes your life a lot lighter. And at first, yes, discipline does feel restrictive at first because you're going against the conditioning of the old program, right? Maybe you've been living a certain way, and when you want to become more disciplined, right? And I heard this one thing that really did make me think. I'm still thinking about this too. It's like everybody's discipline. It's just what are you disciplined in, right? Because a lot of people are disciplined in doom scrolling. A lot of people are disciplined in limiting habits, right? They do them every day. I mean, you have to be, that's discipline, is doing it every day, showing up every day, right? But it's like shifting that discipline to things that are aligned. But the point being, when you want to shift from one way of being to another way of being, at first it is going to feel restrictive. There's going to be friction, right? This is what I mean about that mental dialogue, that inner dialogue, that mental conversation with yourself, right? We need to prepare for that restriction, prepare for that friction, right? Because we understand, hey, when I make this shift, when I want to start being more disciplined in this area, and I haven't been in a while, it's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be some friction. I'm going to have urges to go back, right? Because I'm going against the program. So let's mentally prep ourselves for that restriction and friction. So when it comes up, we don't panic. No. We prepped ourselves for this. So we're going to navigate this in a healthier way, right? But it does. Discipline definitely removes the mental clutter of indecision, right? It just helps you to find a rhythm, right? There's this thing in psychology called a social rhythm. And funny enough, they use this in like psychiatry. They use this in psychiatry. As you guys know, a little bit of my story, if you don't know, when back in April of 2021, I ended up in a psychiatric hospital, and I was diagnosed with bipolar, and I ended up in the hospital 6 more times, in and out, and that's kind of what sparked, this journey for me. And let me know if you guys would want me to do a whole episode kind of on my story, and like, yeah, I know I have my first episode, but I could really go in depth in certain things because it was like, there's moments where I got to sit back, take a step back and be like, dang, I can't believe I really went through that because, it was really wild. Like, it was really wild. And I was like, yeah, it was really wild. So let me know if you guys want me to go deep into that. I might do that one day. But yes, it's going to feel restrictive at first, and we're going to mentally be ready for that. For sure. And also, when we talk about discipline creating structure, that structure allowing for clarity to arise, that structure also gives you a lot of energy back. Because now you create this rhythm. Oh, hold on. Before I forget, that's what I was saying with the rhythm. So there's this thing in psychiatry, right? And this is what I did. That's called your social rhythm. So with certain people, right, like me, I was like, there's no way I'm going to keep taking medication for the rest of my life. There's just no way. So I got to figure out something else, right? Now, I did a lot of inner work. I did a lot of, just internal shifting and shifting my diet, shifting how I was moving, all of that stuff. I shifted a lot. But basically, there's this term in psychiatry called your social rhythm, where patients who maybe medication hasn't been working or they don't really want to be on medication, there's this concept of creating a rhythm in your life that helps you to stay grounded and promotes a healthy mental state, right? It promotes a healthy mental state so that you don't fall into, episodes or, very low lows or whatever it is, whatever you're struggling with. And so I didn't realize that's what I did until after, I kind of like overcame that season, and I met with a psychiatrist one time, and I was kind of telling her about my story and just like my journey and where I am. And she was like, wow, like, kudos to you for doing all that work. And, there's actually a term called social rhythm where, it's rare because a lot of people, aren't willing to really do all that. But, she said there's this thing called social rhythm where you create a rhythm socially in your life that promotes, a healthy mental state. And a lot of people, the people that can do that, it really does work for them. And I guess that's me. You feel me? I guess that's me. But yeah, I was like, medication is not the move, man. That joint was, bro, I was on so many different medications too. Like because that's what happens. And like I said, I was in the psych ward 6 times in a year. So every time you go in there, they going to try something new on you. They going to add medication, take a medication, switch a medication. It's like, bruh. And a lot of them make you feel very just like a zombie, like, trapped inside your own body. You don't think straight. Appetite was off, like everything. It was just affecting every area of my life. And trying to navigate all that while still being in school and playing basketball and dealing with, just this new reality that I was living, and this new stigma that was over me. It was a lot. And there was so much in there that we'll definitely talk about one day. We'll definitely talk about and get more in depth in that. But yeah, that was my point with the social rhythm. But I digress. I think that's a good moment to say it. I think that's a good moment because, yeah, we're talking about rhythm, but I am a little bit going off topic because we got to get back to the episode. It's already been 51 minutes, and how many points we got left? 2 points. Dang. All right, yeah, we're good. Yeah. So clarity is born from discipline. So be disciplined with the little things, man. Be disciplined with the little things. A practice for point number 3. Pick one discipline like journaling or sleep or exercising and guard it fiercely for 1 week. Treat it like a non-negotiable. Notice how locking in on that one discipline improves your clarity in other areas of life. Choose one thing. Okay, I'm not going to change anything about my life, but I'm going to lock in on journaling, right? Whatever that is for you. I'm just going to use journaling. I'm going to do it every single day, and I'm going to see how I feel after a week. And you'll see how just that one small shift, that one small basic fundamental that you just were really disciplined and locked in with helps you with clarity, helps you to feel more grounded. Now imagine doing that with all of the other fundamentals, right? And you just keep stacking them. And then you create this social rhythm that helps you stay grounded. You create this bucket of grains that helps you stay grounded, aligned, and in tune. It's a beautiful thing. And the next point number 4, spiritual foundation is the anchor. Physical habits can carry you far, but without spiritual grounding, you'll always feel like something's missing. Your spiritual foundation, whether it's prayer, meditation, reflection, or simply gratitude, is the anchor that holds you steady when life's currents get strong. It reminds you that your identity is not in your performance, not in your numbers or your outcomes, but in something deeper. A strong spiritual base allows you to navigate pressure, setbacks, and success without losing yourself. So true. I think for me, this really resonates because having a strong spiritual foundation is so vital, right? Like I have a whole podcast called Life is Spiritual. If you haven't tapped in, go tap in. But basically, I said in that podcast that life is inherently spiritual. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So it's our nature. Spirituality is our nature. So it's very important for us to cultivate a spiritual foundation, right? Because that is the anchor for our life. And, this podcast is very open. Whatever that looks like for you, whatever practice or faith or background that looks like for you, right? Spirituality transcends any label, any room, any ethnicity, and it's something that you can express in your own unique way. But it's really important to really carve out and create a spiritual foundation that helps you to stay anchored, right? And for me, this really resonated because I feel like I got away from that a little bit. I really did. I felt like I got too caught up in the external world that I, was losing that sense of foundation spiritually, right? And so a lot of that does come from meditation and journaling for me because that's my time to just reflect. That's my time to connect and be, right? Be. That's it. Just be. And so, yes, make sure you're prioritizing your spiritual foundation, whatever that looks like for you. And I just think it's so important to also understand that you're being guided. always. You're always being guided, no matter what you're going through, no matter what season that you're trying to navigate. You're always being guided. And having a really strong spiritual foundation helps you to remember that guidance and connect to that guidance in those times that you need it most. Because it's very easy. I see this in a lot of people that I talk to, especially young people who are trying to navigate. When you feel like you're going through this life alone and everything's on your back, man, that's tough. It's so tough. It's so tough. Versus understanding that you're being guided, that you have something bigger than you that you can always connect to, that is always with you through everything you go through. It just creates a different perspective and a different feeling going through life, right? You don't feel so alone. Yeah, and things can get hard, but you're being guided. Yeah, things get hard, but you can always connect to source, right? So I think having a spiritual foundation is incredibly important. And you'll realize when you do that it is the anchor for your life, right? It is the anchor for your life. And like we said, whatever that looks like for you, whatever religion, faith, or tradition that looks like for you, take it with a grain of salt. But having that spiritual foundation is incredibly important, for sure. Direction matters more than speed. Spiritual grounding acts like a compass, making sure all of your momentum is actually taking you somewhere meaningful. So true. Direction over speed. Direction over speed. A lot of people are moving fast, but in the wrong direction. Slow is fast. Slow is fast. I think that's what is that? That's not Lightning McQueen. That's Oh no, is it Cars from the movie Cars? Slow is fast, or was that Talladega Nights? I don't know. One of those. Slow is fast though. Slow is fast. Slow is fast. Right? Really focus on the direction over the speed. It's not about working harder, it's about working smarter, right? It's about working in alignment, right? So we need to focus on what direction are we moving in, right? And use that spiritual grounding as a compass, right? Because internally you'll know, right, when you're moving in a direction that's aligned and in a direction that's not. And it's not necessarily that everything feels good and everything's working out for you. It's more of just an internal knowing. It's just an internal knowing. Like, when you're moving in the right direction, you're still going to go through really tough things. You're still going to have to face different emotions and, difficulties and all of these things. But there's just this knowing internally that, no, this is happening for me. I'm still moving in the right direction. Just keep on showing up, right? Versus when you're just moving out of alignment and there's just this internal knowing that you're like, nah, I'm not, this ain't it right now. And we need to listen to that. We need to listen to that. But it's very hard to listen to that internal knowing when you don't have a spiritual foundation, right? Because remember, life is spiritual. You are spiritual. So you need to have a foundation that allows you to express your spirituality, your spiritual nature, right? Maybe it's walking in nature. Go for a hike, right? Go outside. Put your feet in the grass, right? Do some sun gazing, right? Close your eyes and allow the sun to hit your eyelids. Whatever it is, go for a walk by water. Go on the water. Listen to nature. Just be, right? Because remember, if you're a spiritual being, then connecting to your spirituality isn't going to come from doing. It's going to come from being, right? You need to learn how to be. Be still. Stillness. Connect. Stillness and connection. Sustainability comes from depth, not drive. You can run on sheer willpower for a season, but it's your spiritual anchor that sustains you through life's ups and downs. Yes. Yes. A lot of people try to will their way to where they want to go. And that could work for a season or two, but it's draining. And it's not sustainable long term. You will burn out that way. But when you have that spiritual anchor, that thing keeps you going no matter what season you're in. What good is it for someone to gain the world, yet forfeit their soul? That's from Mark 8:36. For all my Christians out there. What good is it to gain the world, yet forfeit their soul? Ponder on that for a little bit, because we do live in a society where we get so caught up in the world that we lose ourselves trying to please the world. And in that process, we forfeit our soul. Nipsey has a great saying. He was reiterating it from somebody else, but I heard it from him. He was like, would you rather be at war with yourself and at peace with the world, or at peace with yourself and at war with the world? And you need to really be honest with that, right? And for me, growing up, it was at war with myself and peace with the world, trying to fit in, trying to please everybody. But what good is it to gain the world if you lose yourself in the process? What good is it to forfeit your spiritual nature and your truth just to get external validation, right? What good is it? What good is it? And I don't know, I know I mentioned, because today's actually Wednesday. So like I told you guys, I'm switching to doing my podcast on the weekday. And usually I was doing my podcast in the mornings. Right now it's like, what time is it? 8:30 at night. It's just a different energy right now. And I just want to take a moment and reflect and really let you guys know how much I appreciate each and every one of y'all in this space. Like, truly, more than y'all know. Yeah, it's deep. It's deep. It's deep. I really do appreciate each and every person that taps into this podcast. I appreciate it so much because it shows me that you're on this path too of trying to be the best version of yourself, right? And we all know that on that path, it's not going to be perfect, right? I still have things that I'm navigating that I struggle with. These last couple of weeks, to be completely honest, have been very tough, just internally feeling really disconnected and just conflicted, because I do think our soul is constantly calling out for us to be more of who we were made to be and grow and evolve. And I think there comes points where it's man, am I really trying to do that? Am I really trying to answer the call, And it could be really tough. But I just wanted to take a moment to just shine some gratitude and appreciation for y'all, man, because y'all don't even know the impact that y'all have had on my life. Y'all have no idea what you guys tuning in and helping me cultivate this community has done for me and my well-being and my journey. Truly, I get so many DMs from people saying they appreciate the content and the podcast and all that stuff, and I try to make it known when I respond, but y'all have no idea how much y'all mean to me. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, how much this space means to me, how much you guys have helped me grow, how much you guys have challenged me, with the questions and just the insights that you guys provide. You guys have helped me to confront certain things about myself that I need to confront. Because in order for me to show up in an authentic way in this podcast, in this setting, I have to keep confronting things within myself and being real with myself, right? If I didn't have this space, I could just go through life and push that stuff to the side and not have to worry about it. But I can't do that. I can't do that because I feel like we're a family, and family, they look out for each other, right? Y'all look out for me, I look out for y'all. And whether y'all realize it or not, y'all have helped me more than y'all know. Every single person that is literally hearing me say this, I'm talking to you. I'm dead serious. I am dead serious. I am talking to you. So I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you. Truly, thank you. So, yeah, thank you guys. I thought your boy was about to shed a tear right there. Nah, I felt, sometimes I feel, I get emotional, but not in the sense of crying, just I feel it deeply, I'd say it definitely does take a lot for me to cry, but crying's not a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing, especially my men out there, man. Let your tears go, right? Let your tears go, man. I think that's one of the most masculine things you can do. We got to do a whole podcast on masculinity for my brothers out there, man, because we gotta talk about that. right? And we got to talk about just what we deal with as men navigating this journey. And I feel like, you know, we live in a world that has painted a very skewed picture of what a man is. And it can create a skewed picture for a lot of young men in their minds of what they need to be when they don't need to be that, you know. But I digress. I digress. That's the perfect time to use it. Oh, man. Man, I love y'all. All right, let's get to this last point, and then we'll end the podcast. Point number 5, moment-to-moment living. Moment-to-moment living. The basics are not just daily disciplines. They're moment-to-moment choices. Every moment is an invitation, align or drift. Too often we stress over months or years ahead, but transformation always happens in the moment. One choice to pause instead of react. One choice to eat clean instead of indulge. One choice to focus instead of procrastinate. When you start living in the moment with intentionality, life stops feeling overwhelming. You just keep stacking aligned moments in real time, and those moments build your future. So true. I was doing a journal. I was journaling this idea of how momentum is created by moments, right? If you want to create momentum in your life, you need to lock in on the moments, right? It comes from just stacking moments. You keep stacking moments, you create momentum. You keep stacking moments, you create momentum, right? It's a moment to moment thing. And that's the shift that really helped me, is just living moment to moment, day by day, moment by moment, step by step, right? Let me just keep prioritizing moment to moment, and ask yourself in each moment, understand each moment is an invitation, align or drift. What am I going to do in this moment? Am I going to do something that aligns, or am I going to do something that, kind of takes me a little bit off the path, right? And here's the beauty of the journey. Then you have another moment, and another moment, and another moment. And maybe the last moment, you did something that made you drift. Well, this next moment, you have an opportunity to do something that aligns, right? And that's what can help you to really move through the things that you navigate, mistakes and slip-ups and things of that nature, in a better way, because you understand that this journey is a moment-to-moment journey. But a lot of times when we overcomplicate the process and we make things bigger than they are, that's when a mistake can lead to a week, 2 weeks of just dwelling on it and, compounding, right? So moment to moment, moment to moment. You don't need to wait for the perfect plan or the perfect time. The power is always in the choice you make right now. Right now. Your power is in this moment. It's not in tomorrow. It's not in yesterday. It's right now. So what are we going to do now? Right? What are we going to do now? We made a mistake. What are we going to do now? We fell down. What are we going to do now? Right? We slipped up. What are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? Sit with that. Be honest with yourself. What are we going to do now? Align or drift. Overthinking the future creates anxiety. Living moment to moment frees you from the weight of tomorrow and gives you peace for today. Momentum is built in the now, right? Like we just said, momentum is built in the now. Quoting scripture again, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Matthew 6:34. Matthew 6:34. That is one area that, I've mentioned this a couple of times. Like, obviously I don't classify as a Christian, but I do study all traditions, and, I read books of all faiths. That is something that I have been wanting to kind of get back into, is, studying the Bible, really diving deep, especially into, Jesus's life and his teachings, because I think Jesus is great. Religion is where it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of people don't live it. A lot of people could talk about it, but a lot of people don't live it, and that applies to everyone and everything. This is not just in religion. This is in life, and I still to this day am working on making sure that I'm living and not just talking. It's very easy to talk about the person you want to be and talk about the things you want to do. It's a whole nother thing to live it. Whole nother thing to live it, right? Whole nother thing to live it. And that's what cognitive dissonance is. Cognitive dissonance is when you're doing things that are not in congruence with the truth of who you are, right? So just be mindful of that. A practice for this point is, before each decision today, pause for 3 seconds and ask, Does this choice align me or distract me? Use this as your compass in the moment. Does this choice align me or distract me? Right? And don't go off of emotion or feeling, right? Because a lot of times you're going to feel like doing the thing that distracts you, but you need to make an aligned decision off of principle, off of values, off of authenticity, right? Principle over feelings. Principle over feelings. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's podcast. That was great. I needed that. I really did. I definitely came into this podcast feeling a bit heavy. So I needed that. Thank you guys. Truly. So yeah, that's going to do it for this week. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And remember, most importantly, to take everything with a grain of salt. I will catch you guys next week. Deuces.